Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. We have plenty to get into, such as UCLA's men's basketball team. They are still dancing, and they are still alive as they have advanced to the Final Four. How about the Bruins? First four to the Final Four. Great job to the Bruins. They will be off to the Final Four, and what a run they have put together. As for the other Pac-12 SoCal team being USC, well, their playoff run or tournament run fell short as they lost to Gonzaga in the Elite Eight. Still a good run, though. Also, the Lakers acquire Andre Drummond, but unfortunately gets hurt in his first game against the Milwaukee Bucks. Good news is it's not too terrible, but he is going to need he may need a few days to get better. And it's opening day for the Angels, Dodgers, and Padres. Will the Dodgers be able to repeat as World Series champions? Or will the Padres and the field have something to say about that? Also, the Anaheim Ducks and LA Kings are still struggling. The Kings, just we all thought they were getting back on track, they have taken the struggle bus backwards. How will they be able to turn around? And will they be able to turn around? All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Yes, this is no April Fool's joke. I am having the SoCal Supreme Sports Show on Thursday instead of Friday. Friday, unfortunately, is no good for me considering I am just going to be super busy. I am on spring break this week from college, but it does not mean my work schedule is going to be super hectic. As unfortunately, I basically have to move to this episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show to today, but it is what it is. I mean, hopefully we'll be able to get the SoCal Supreme Sports Show back to its regular time and day next week. I highly doubt it's going to be back on at 5 p.m., but you never know. I mean, high school football season is almost over, but it still remains to be seen on what else I'm going to be doing going forward, so we'll see. I'm not going to cross that bridge until I get there. So there is that. But without any further delay, let's get on into some SoCal Supreme Sports Show action. But first, we have our list of sponsors or sponsor that we need to make note of. Our sponsor for IE Sports Radio is Legacy Financial. 2020 was a tough year. However, staying positive, keeping your faith, and continuing to work hard is the goal. If you're in a financial struggle at the moment, you're doing well and you want to get to the next level, or you're looking for a new opportunity to work for yourself and earn more money part-time, give IO a call at 510-928-2104. That number again is 510-928-2104 to book your appointment today. Io and her husband Andrew are just two people on a mission to help families build a legacy. You can follow Legacy Financial on Twitter at legacy_uncut, and you can also follow them on Instagram at sims_uncut. And honestly, they're two great people. I actually just recently had a meeting with them, and they really opened my eyes to look at what is important when it comes to the near future. Because if anything if there's anything we've learned from this pandemic, it's that nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is promised. Like, tomorrow is not promised to being successful, and you just got to prepare for, like, the future and prepare for any of these worst-case scenarios. So definitely do check out Legacy Financial. Like, you won't be disappointed with Andrew and Io. So there's that. So thank you to Legacy Financial for being the official sponsor of iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. So now let's get on in to that Southern California sports action. So we're actually going to go start with NCAA men's basketball because there are no NCAA women's basketball teams in Southern California that have their seasons continued because UCLA lost in the round of 32, and then California Baptist, I almost said Cal Baptist, it's California Baptist, we all got to remember that, or CBU, lost in the quarterfinals of the WNIT. So there's that. So onward to the NCAA men's basketball tournament. So UCLA and USC were in the Elite Eight for the first time ever, because that's never really happened, that UCLA and USC has never been to the Elite Eight in men's. I don't think it's happened in men's or women's basketball. So anyway, we'll start with the UCLA matchup against Alabama. It took me a while to turn on the game, and then I found it, and I made the wisest choice turning it on at like halftime. And UCLA put on such a great show. Like, UCLA was actually up 40-29, and I'm thinking, okay, it looks like UCLA is going to actually advance to the Elite Eight, because Alabama was having such a darn good season, and like they were the SEC champions, and then everyone really didn't give a whole lot of credit to UCLA just because the Bruins had such a droll end to their regular season, losing to Oregon State, the eventual Pac-12 tournament champion, and then just losing close games to teams like Oregon, Colorado, USC, and eventually Oregon State, all of which made the NCAA tournament. So, along with UCLA, of course. So, there's that right there. So, it looked as if UCLA was going to have an easy time, and then Alabama was starting to will their way back into the game. Like, they were getting some key baskets from some of their players. And fast forwarding to the latter part of the game, UCLA was up 1, I want to say, and then I want to say it was Jaime Jaquez missed like a free throw, which could have made the game go. It could have put UCLA up more, but then it was one play where the ball went off the shorts of one of the Alabama players, and funnily enough, it actually turned out to it kind of turned out to matter. I don't think it fully turned out to being the difference, as I actually think UCLA was only up 1, where everyone, including the refs, were wondering if the ball went off of the Alabama player or if it went off of Jaquez. So anyway, UCLA was up 1, and then Alabama start playing the foul game, as they actually sent David Singleton to the line. He made both free throws, and eventually UCLA was up 3, and believe it or not, one of Alabama's players, I forget what his name was. Either way, I'm checking the box score as we speak. I think his name was like Alex Reese. Yes, Alex Reese, who came off the bench. He made a deep three-pointer, which tied the game at 75 apiece, and eventually the game got taken into overtime, which I was like, thank God David Singleton made those 2 free throws, because had he missed one of those, that would have been a tragedy, as actually the game was tied at 65 at the end of regulation. But in overtime, UCLA really surged ahead. Players like Jaime Jaquez and like I think Johnny Juzang, before he fouled out, had significant moments. Tiger Campbell stepped up. Jules Bernard also stepped up, even though he kind of cooled off in the second half. And Cody Riley. Now, everyone was everyone throughout most of the game was slandering Cody Riley. I don't know the guy, but honestly, he actually came up with some crucial plays. He made free throws, he had big baskets, he made defensive stops. I don't see why UCLA fans and all these basketball fans were straight up hating on Cody Riley. Like, yeah, he only played 26 minutes, but the dude did a lot for UCLA. It's like, he obviously gets overshadowed because of players such as like Singleton, Bernard, Jaquez, Juzang. But Cody Riley did a lot for UCLA. Like, he made the little plays that truly mattered. He made the hustle plays. Like, those hustle plays don't show up on the stat sheet, but they do end up mattering in the game when it truly matters. UCLA actually scored 23 points in overtime, which partially because Alabama was playing the fouling game, and partially because UCLA was just making big plays. Like, Jaime Jaquez was probably the dude right there. He was scoring it well, and eventually UCLA won 88-78 in the overtime period and wound up marching to the Elite Eight, which was awesome. Yeah! So good job to UCLA. As for the other matchup in the and I say Elite Eight, I meant Sweet 16. UCLA beat Alabama in the Sweet 16 and then advanced to the Elite Eight. Now let's jump to the other Sweet 16 matchup between USC and Oregon. So this was actually the second meeting the USC had against the Ducks. Early on, it looked like Oregon meant business, as USC was down quite a bit. They weren't down too much. I think they were down like 6 or 5-ish. And then USC started to get together, and then Oregon just could not hit a three-pointer. Like, Oregon was held to like 30% shooting from the field. USC eventually, in the second half, got the lead up to like, I think it was like 20 or 21. And then Oregon, just like the previous matchup, cut into that lead. They got the lead down to as little as, I think, 10 or so. 10 or 8. And I was kind of fearing for my life. I was thinking, please, USC, not another collapse. And then Taj Edey. This kid is something special. Graduate transfer, really stepped up for USC. He had 20 points. He was 3 for 6 from downtown, and I think USC was only up 8, and then he made a 3, which really broke the ice for USC. And then also the Mobley brothers did well. Isaiah Mobley surprisingly had 13 points. Evan Mobley didn't have the points, but he did have the stats. He had 10 points, 8 boards, and 6 assists, and someone else who really stepped up for USC was Isaiah White, who had 22 points, 5 boards, and 4 3-pointers. I think that might have been his... He has never made 4 threes in a game, but he really stepped up. And Isaiah White's also another graduate transfer. So there was that right there. And also they got a contribution from Max Engbonk Polo, who had 9 points off the bench, which is cool. Eventually USC wound up winning 82-68. I want to say that's like the first time in forever that USC has beaten Oregon twice in a season. But it was a very sweet victory. USC really performed well. I was very surprised that they actually won by double digits. Like, the Drake game was one thing, the Kansas game was another, but this was quite astounding. It's tough to beat a team once or twice, or I'm sorry, not once or twice, twice or 3 times in a season. And it's quite amazing that they were able to do so. So USC advanced to the Elite Eight, which was awesome. So at the moment, which was Sunday, UCLA got to face Michigan in the Elite Eight, while USC got to face the number 1 overall seed Gonzaga. So now let's fast forward to Tuesday, where USC faced Gonzaga, and I'm just going to make this short and sweet. USC got steamrolled. They got off to probably their worst start that they could have ever imagined, as USC, I think, fell behind like 7-0 and eventually 9-0. Like, USC could not have asked for a worse start. Like, they were horrible. It was disgusting, man. Like, I was checking the score. I actually was not watching the game. I was just getting updates, and and I was looking at this, I was like, uh-oh, USC's done for. And eventually, USC, it was pretty much over by halftime. The score was, I think it was like 49-30 at halftime in favor of Gonzaga. Yeah, it was 49-30 in favor of halftime, and it was just a drubbing for USC. USC turned the ball over, I think, 8 times in the first half, while Gonzaga only turned it over once. That says a lot for USC and how Gonzaga is just so far better than them. I hate to say it, but this was kind of lose-lose. I mean, obviously it's great that USC made it all the way to the Elite Eight, but it was either pick your poison. It's either lose to your conference rival or lose to a very supreme team, and USC chose the second option, which it wasn't too surprising that USC lost, but Gonzaga is just a machine. They have so many good players, such as Drew Timme and Jalen Suggs. It's absolutely amazing that how Gonzaga has still been able to keep up their undefeated season. They're 30-0, and they're 2 wins away from completing their perfect season and being named national champions for the first time. Sorry about that. In their team's tenure. So it's basically amazing of what Gonzaga has done, and USC could only do so much to keep themselves in the game. Unfortunately, it just wasn't enough, and USC got ousted in the Elite Eight. I mean, I also got to tip my hat to Andy Enfield on an outstanding season. Like I said that no matter what happens, even if USC lost against Gonzaga, I would have been satisfied with what happened regardless. Just because it takes a lot of determination to make it to the Elite Eight. Like, the USC had such a young team. Yes, they had the graduate transfers, but for the most part, they did not return a majority of their starters. And as a result, it looked like they were going to struggle. They came 1 win away from possibly winning the Pac-12 regular season title, and then the Pac-12, even when they lost in the Pac-12 tournament, they really rebounded and showed a lot of grit and resolve. They showed it against Drake, and they drubbed Kansas, and then against Oregon, a team that had really surprised everybody. Well, I don't think they surprised. They were destined to do well. They really performed at their peak. Like, USC played lockdown defense, and they really made it tough for most of their opponents. So, I really definitely got to give props to USC on a great season. Am I sad their season has ended? Of course. But they would have had to play perfect basketball in order to have beaten Gonzaga. That first half was anything but perfect. And it's disappointing because USC teams like that come once, twice, maybe even a blue moon into their program, especially with players like Evan Mobley. But the fact that they got this far, because 60 other teams didn't make it that far, that also includes the first 4 matchups. USC can basically take a bow on their amazing season. And honestly, as a USC fan, I couldn't be more proud of the Trojans. Again, I've criticized Andy Enfield a lot, basically on some of the bad losses that USC had, against Oregon State, Utah, the Colorado losses. But I've also looked at the work that Andy Enfield has put in, not just this year, but in the past. Like last year before the pandemic, I think USC would have gotten in. And then the year before, USC just barely missed out on making the NCAA tournament because of some BS. And then the year prior to that, which I believe that was in 2017, USC was able to make the NCAA tournament, and they won a game, surprisingly, against a team that they lost to in the previous year. And they came so close to advancing to the Sweet 16. And then the year before that, in 2016, USC advanced to the NCAA tournament, but wound up losing to Providence, which they managed to beat in 2017 in the first round. I don't know why USC was given that matchup for the second straight year, but what can we do? But I will say this, I don't know what's going to happen with Evan Mobley. If Evan Mobley decides to come back, cool. If he doesn't decide to come back, then I wish him the best. And I don't know what's going to happen with Obviously I know what's going to happen with Taj Edey. Taj Edey's a graduate, and he's going forward to pursuing his careers and ideals. Same with Isaiah White. I don't know if Taj and Isaiah White are going to declare for the NBA draft, but I wish them the best, and they really made an impact for them. And I couldn't be more grateful for their contributions to USC. It just sucks that the way that they went out. Like, if they had lost by only 15 or below, I think, or if USC had covered the bet line, I don't really follow that stuff, but if USC had just covered, or if they only lost by 12 or below, I wouldn't have been too disappointed. Obviously I'm disappointed USC lost. It's just that I felt so bad for the seniors and the graduate transfers. And Evan Mobley. I don't know if Evan's going to stay with USC. Maybe he'll declare for the NBA draft. If he does, cool. If he stays with USC, awesome. Then he and his brother are going to do big things. If he decides to declare for the NBA draft, just like Josh Christopher of Arizona State, who's also a SoCal native, and Cade Cunningham of Oklahoma State did, then so be it. And I think Evan Mobley deserves to go to the NBA. He just needs to put on some more mass. He needs to work on his post game, and he just needs to work on being aggressive, because I don't think he was too aggressive in the loss against Gonzaga, because his brother Isaiah had 19 points while he had 17 points. He eventually got to 17 points, but it took him a while to get there, just because Gonzaga was sucking all the confidence and all the fearlessness out of USC, and I also think that USC lost because of lack of experience in the Elite Eight. This was USC's first appearance in the Elite Eight since 2001. That's 20 years ago. 20 years. USC has not been close to the Elite Eight since that time. It's quite astounding, actually, but I think when they faced a true blue blood such as Gonzaga, I know Gonzaga has not won a national championship, but they've had a lot of NCAA tournament pedigree, that USC was just in for a rough ride, and Gonzaga pretty much smacked them all over the place. So, overall, I'm just going to put a bow on USC season and say it was a fantastic year. The fact that they were one of 8 teams to advance deep into the NCAA tournament is absolutely amazing. And I hope USC gets to have another great season like this sometime in the near future. My only thing is that I don't know when that'll be. It's going to be tough to replace this team's dynamic. Again, this was a team that almost won the Pac-12 regular season title, a team that possibly could have been a higher than a 6th seed. It's just that the problem with USC is that they got jobbed in terms of their placement. USC got the worst thing possible to happen to them. They were placed in Gonzaga's region. As we say hello to Ben Suttereth in the chat room, he says USC went further than what I thought. I agree. I had USC in the Sweet 16, but I also didn't have Oregon in the Sweet 16. I had them losing to Iowa, but if I had known Oregon was that good compared to Iowa, and if I had known the Big Ten was going to be a big dud in the NCAA tournament, I would have probably gone Oregon, USC, and then I would have had USC going to the Elite Eight. But I'm not good with this whole bracketology thing. I wanted to pick USC to go to the Elite Eight, but I didn't want to seem like too much of a homer. But that's the beauty of March Madness. Anything can happen. Even the worst team, or the team that doesn't have the greatest promise in the world, can have the deep tournament run, such as USC or Oregon State. Oregon State was also another pleasant surprise, because they were a 12 seed and they got highly disrespected. Everyone thought that they were just a joke, and then look at them. They advanced to the Elite Eight, where they eventually fell to a highly touted defensive Houston team. So there's that. But it was absolutely a great season for USC, and I couldn't be more proud as a USC fan. Now let's jump to the other matchup that involved the Southern California team, being UCLA. Now, UCLA's matchup against Michigan was quite the bumpy ride. UCLA led at halftime. they were dominating most of the game, and then there were some questionable calls that happened with the Bruins that were going in the favor of Michigan, and it was actually a seesaw battle. Juwan Howard is a great coach. He was actually just recently named the AP Coach of the Year, which I kind of question that just because I think nothing against Juwan Howard. I think Andy Enfield should have gotten it, or Mick Cronin. I mean, obviously, Michigan won their conference tournament. Or was that Illinois? I think that was Illinois. My bad. Either way, yeah, Michigan didn't even advance to the finals of their tournament. But either way, I kind of think it should have gone to someone a little bit more unique, and like maybe Cronin or Andy Enfield, or heck, even Wayne Tinkle. I'm not trying to be a Pac-12 activist, but I'm just trying to say that why did it have to be someone of the Power 5 conference? Why couldn't have gone to I'm not trying to say they could have given it to Dana Altman, or I could have also suggested maybe giving it to a non-Power 5 school that's not named Gonzaga. Because I think or heck, maybe even give it to Houston's coach. I know most people don't like the Houston head coach, but I think he's done a phenomenal job. I'm just saying, y'all. Anyway, over to UCLA, Michigan. It was back and forth action. It looked as if UCLA was going to pull out the victory. Then Michigan said, not today. And then UCLA was just playing tug of war with them. And then, unfortunately, in the latter stage of the game, UCLA led 50-49. And then I think it was Jaime Jaquez. He missed the second of a 1-and-1 free throw, which I'm like, oh, come on. And that's what really stressed me out. And then Michigan whiffed on a three-pointer, and then the ball was knocked away by UCLA, and then there was it wasn't that play. It was another play where someone attempted a three. It looked good, and then it got knocked out of bounds by a UCLA player, and then 0.5 was left on the clock, so basically quick catch and shoot, and then the second shot went off the glass and no good, and UCLA was able to beat Michigan 51-49. And the really good thing about that, now this kid really stepped up. Johnny Juzang, who is a Southern California native, had 28 points. He basically had over half of what UCLA scored. That is bonkers right there. That is absolutely impressive. And this was just a classic defensive rivalry game. And no player off the bench scored for UCLA. So every point came from a starter, whether it was Cody Riley, Jaime Jaquez, Johnny Juzang, who had 28. Tiger Campbell actually was the second highest scorer with 11. And then Jules Bernard had 4. So it wasn't the high-scoring match that everyone had hoped for, but it was still a highly defensive touted matchup, and it was quite the amazing and great defensive effort. And something I want to get out real quick is that I've actually come to watch more NCAA basketball as opposed to the NBA. I am forever an NBA buff, but this year I have watched more NCAA basketball, mainly because the players work hard and they don't get paid matter of fact, they don't get paid at all, but the NBA players get paid millions of dollars just to flop and not play defense. I'm not saying the NBA doesn't play defense. There are certain teams that play defense. Certain teams have actually, I have seen a couple matches that have finished in the high 90s, maybe even the low 80s or high 80s as well. But I will also say this, I think, and looking at NCAA basketball has made me appreciate NCAA basketball more, just because these players don't get paid a dime and they're grinding it out every single game. I'm not trying to start a little argument saying NCAA basketball is better than the NBA, but I will say this: some personality who I'm not going to name just because I don't want to open a can of worms had the audacity to say people who like NCAA basketball more than the NBA are considered racist. He actually said that. I'm not going to say who said it, but it was the most ridiculous comment ever. And I kind of had to put it out there saying I appreciate NCAA basketball more this year. I mean, obviously the talent level is is basically up there in terms of the NBA, but you can't compare the talent level of NCAA basketball to like the NBA. That's like comparing apples to oranges. It's like, of course, the talent's up there with like LeBron, AD, Luka Doncic, and all those other players that I could probably name off the top of my head, but I probably won't. But I will also say this, I'll still forever be an NBA buff, but I think seeing NCAA basketball this year on the men's side has really opened my eyes, and I'm actually more into it. Like, I don't think I've tuned into more NCAA basketball in a year than ever. Like, I was very into what USC had this season, and UCLA as well. And personally, as we say hello to Larry B in the chat room, thank you for tuning in, my brother. I will say this, I think I've come to like love more NCAA basketball, and the UCLA-Michigan game is a prime example. It was a defensive battle. Like, I didn't want to see... I didn't have the chance to say this, but if UCLA was going to beat Michigan, it was going to be with defense. And sure enough, they did. And Larry here can vouch for me. He loves defensive battles. He doesn't like the high-scoring affairs. I know that's primarily with football, but I personally love defensive battles. And he says he's very proud of both USC and UCLA. Facts. And I'm proud of them, too. Like, mainly UCLA, because UCLA had probably one of the worst endings to their season. They lost to Colorado, then they lost to Oregon, which cost them the Pac-12 regular season title, and then they lost to USC, and then they lost to Oregon State in the first round of the Pac-12 tournament. Guess what those four teams have in common? They made the NCAA tournament. Do you want to know what those four teams have in common? Also, none of them made the Final Four. It would have been great to see USC in the Final Four, but they ran into the buzzsaw that was Gonzaga. UCLA was able to ease past Michigan just because the Big Ten, I don't mean to say this in a negative way, but the Big Ten was a big flop this year. No Big Ten team made the Final Four, and then no ACC team made the Final Four. It was the teams from each conference that made it were from the West Coast Conference, being Gonzaga, the Pac-12 being UCLA, I think it's the AAC. Yeah, AAC with Houston, and then the Big 12 with Baylor. Which, and two of those teams, Baylor and UCLA, didn't even win their conference tournament, from what I know. And Larry says Gonzaga is real. Yeah, facts right. Absolute facts right there. So, now looking ahead to Saturday's matchup between the Bruins and the Bulldogs. If UCLA is going to want to win, they need to play sound, solid defense. They really need to play lockdown defense. They have to. Like, it's going to be so tough for them, though. Like, and Ben says Pac-12 has played awesome. I agree. They had three teams in the final, or not the Final Four, the Elite Eight. And Bill Walton, I got to give a tip of the cap to Bill Walton. He predicted what? He predicted all five teams making the Final Four, even though that's not remotely possible. But he did predict that it would be an all Pac-12 Final Four. He was close. He got one team correct, so I'll give him that. But the Pac-12 has really shown up this NCAA tournament. But I will also say this about UCLA: they're going to need to play perfect against Gonzaga. It goes without saying. Like, if they play anything less than perfect, then they're going to need to play doubly perfect in the second half. But whether UCLA wins or loses, it would be cool if they won, because I'd get more material and get more material for next week, and I'd get to talk about them more. I'll say this: UCLA really went above and beyond for a team, and this is a team that lost one of their best players. I think his name is Chris Smith, and he was lost to the season due to an ankle injury. And it really sucks that he he was out for the season. I know everyone can say, well, other teams had like opt-outs or other teams had like season-ending injuries as well, but UCLA is kind of that team that looked good early on. They started off good when the AP polls started, and then they lost to San Diego State, and they went triple OT with Pepperdine, and then we got all these crazy little scenario matchups where UCLA was winning most of them, and they lost to Ohio State, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And then the fact that UCLA is here in the Final Four and how they just barely made the NCAA tournament, mind you, is absolutely astounding. So whether UCLA wins on Saturday or whether they lose, I'm proud of how they've played, and they really represent Southern California well. It would be cool if UCLA had another upset trick up their jerseys, but I kind of got to be realistic that it's going to be very tough for them to win, and they're going to need to play their guts out. They have to leave it on the floor. Otherwise, what happened to all those other teams that opposed Gonzaga will happen to them. So there's that. But that's going to do it for the NCAA basketball portion of the show. We're actually nearing the end. Like, even if Ben says, Teran, you are a Pac-12 activist. I admit, like, but here's the thing. The Pac-12 got such a bad rap this year. Like, everyone says Pac-12 is not the Pac-12, the Conference of Champions. But look at how far the Pac-12 got. It's like 4 teams made the Sweet 16, and then 3 teams made the Elite 8. The only reason why 4 teams couldn't make the Elite 8 was because USC and Oregon were in the same matchup in the Sweet 16, which is really cool, honestly. Like, I like seeing conference teams face one another in the round of 16. Like, at least in like the round of 16. Like, I don't like seeing them in the first round, because if you play them and then they're fresh off of a win, then it's tough to beat the same team like twice in a row and whatnot. So that's just my little spiel. But the Pac-12 has really shown up. But that's just me, however. Like, while Ben is in the chat room, I'll also give a salute and a tip of the cap to Roy Williams, the North Carolina men's basketball coach, on his retirement. He had himself a phenomenal coaching career. I really enjoyed his body of work. He has over 900 wins with the Tar Heels. And this isn't an April Fool's joke. There is no April Fool's jokes anywhere. That Roy Williams has officially retired, and I wish him the best. And I gotta give him a salute, and I gotta give him a good little send-off. And personally, I know North Carolina is not Southern California, but I definitely got to make note of it, because he's an icon when it comes to NCAA men's basketball. So I salute you, good sir, Roy Williams, and I wish you the best of luck in retirement. Alright, so that's going to do it for NCAA men's basketball talk. Let's go to the NBA now. So, the NBA, the Lakers are still dealing with life without Anthony Davis and LeBron James. It sucks. I mean, Anthony Davis is nearing his return, but it's still going to be like a ways away. LeBron is out until like maybe May, or at least the latter part of the season. So for the Lakers, they needed help, and luckily for them, they managed to sign. Ben says Roy picked the worst day, though. I agree. Yeah. So anyway, Lakers basically they actually picked up a free agent in Andre Drummond, and I was so happy that Drummond got to the Lakers. So, and he brings a lot of depth to the Lakers, and he is a definite powerful big man, and he spent most of his days in like with the Detroit Pistons, and I actually got to play y'all a little bit of a funny clip that I actually talked about last week when I said that if Andre Drummond would go to the Lakers, I'd play something pretty funny. So, hope y'all enjoy.
Drummond, this boy's up to something. Drummond, what was you expecting? Deep out, Michael Jordan just said, text him.
Okay, so for those that don't know what that is, that's basically Obama singing Jumpman by Drake, and then just having a little twist of Andre Drummond. I don't know who created that video, but that was the first thing I saw when I saw Andre Drummond going to the Lakers, and I'm like, yes, this is amazing. Unfortunately, and last night, the Andre Drummond made his Laker debut against the Milwaukee Bucks. And unfortunately for Andre Drummond, he had a right toe contusion, or left toe contusion. Either way, he hurt his big toe. One of the Bucks players accidentally stepped on his toe, and for those of you that are squeamish, please be advised. It snapped the toenail off of Andre Drummond's toe. One of the Bucks players stepped on Andre Drummond's toe, and then it snapped the toenail off of his toe, and I'm like, oh dear God. And he said, and Drummond even said that it was bleeding like crazy. Unfortunately for him, x-rays came out negative, so it's not too bad, but he is going to miss a little time. So that's just great. More Lakers injuries. Like, you've already got Anthony Davis and LeBron out, and then you've also got Drummond, who just played in his first game, out as well. It's like, gosh dang it. And the Lakers looked good with Drummond. The problem is that it was just for one quarter, and the Lakers need to play full 4 quarters. But again, I'm not overly concerned for the Lakers going forward, because they actually won without Anthony Davis and LeBron in a couple of games. I do remember their first game they won without LeBron and AD was against Orlando, which Orlando's not really the greatest team out there, I'm not going to lie, but I will also say this, that it's still pretty good. Like, a win is a win. I'm not going to complain, especially since the Magic just beat a certain team that we're going to be getting into in a little bit as well. So, yeah, Lakers beat the Magic this past Sunday, and they also beat the Cavaliers, Drummond's old team, last Friday. So there's that right there for the Lakers. Going forward in the month of April, the Lakers start a 6-game road trip. Well, one of those, or was it 7? I think it's 7. And one of those road games is actually going to be at Staples. So anyway, Lakers kick off their 7-game road trip tomorrow against Sacramento. Then on Sunday, they play the Clippers. The Clippers are going to be the designated home team, so that's why I kind of say it's a road game, but it is what it is. And then next Tuesday, the Lakers play the Raptors, and then next Thursday, the Lakers play at Miami against the Heat, and then next Saturday, the Lakers play at Brooklyn. That's going to be a fun matchup. Could be a possible NBA Finals preview. I only wish that Lakers weren't short-handed, but I could see some of their players stepping up, like Montrezl Harrell or Dennis Schroeder or Kyle Kuzma. And then the following Monday, the Lakers play the Knicks, and then the Lakers close out their road trip at Charlotte, which they also lost their star player in LaMelo Ball, who is out for the season with a thumb injury. And he gets recognition because he's a SoCal product. He is from Chino Hills, just like his older brother Lonzo. So there's that, right? So there's that for the Lakers. Like, in the standings, it's kind of... I'm not fully concerned for the Lakers, but the Western Conference is starting to get tight when it comes to the Lakers being behind, being in the 4 seed. Like, Denver and Portland are just a half a game back of the Lakers, which it's kind of scary, but I think the Lakers will play their best ball in the postseason. Like, it obviously sucks that they have a few players dinged up, their big 3 dinged up, but if they could survive and get to the postseason and get those guys back, I think they should be pretty fine. They're not going to have too many back-to-back games going forward because they already got most of those back-to-back games out of the way in their first part of the season. So Larry B says, SoCal Sports, Lakers Dynasty, Rams and Chargers, laughing. And then USC and UCLA, strong. All over colleges, mixture of thoughts, which he's obviously including like all the other SoCal colleges and whatnot. Ducks and Kings, trash. And then Auto Club Speed sucks, which that's no surprise. And then Larry says Dodgers are strong, and then Angels are a joke. And then he says Padres, please start winning. And then he says Clippers go back to San Diego. Yes, I agree. Or go to Seattle. Well, actually, no. I want to talk. I still want to talk some Clippers. Like, if the Clippers go to Seattle, I can't talk about them anymore because they're not Southern California. So I agree with Larry. Clippers go back to San Diego. And then I want the Padres to start winning too, deep down in my heart. I'll be getting to the MLB in a little bit. So now that we mentioned the Clippers, might as well just go to them right now. So the Clippers play the Denver Nuggets tonight at Staples, and then that's actually a crucial game. Like, if the Clippers win that one, then they're still going to hold their vice grip on the number 3 seed in the Western Conference. But if the Nuggets win, they'll actually inch close to the Lakers' 4 spot, which the West is looking really loaded. Like, I think the West could be up for grabs, but I honestly think the Lakers, at full strength, can come out of the West. It is going to be tough because the Jazz are up there, the Suns are up there, the Clippers are still up there, the Nuggets are looking good, they're starting to improve. The Trailblazers are certainly not to be underestimated. The Mavericks can make some noise, and if I can see their conference, the Spurs are an interesting bunch. The Warriors, if the Warriors actually make the postseason, then that would be quite something. And then the Grizzlies are But to the Lakers' point, I think at full strength the Lakers can do some damage. But for the Clippers, they actually recently had their, I think it was their 6-game winning streak snapped, and it was against the Orlando Magic. And in that game, the Orlando Magic ended the game on a 21-6 run. The Magic wound up winning 103-96, and I'm like, what? I couldn't believe the Clippers lost by that little scenario. It's like, how do you lose to the Magic at home? And you allowed a 21-6 run? Good gracious, Clippers. Like, that's pretty disappointing if you're the Clippers. I'm not gonna lie, that is pretty disappointing. And I even said on my SoCal Supreme Sports Show account, I said, the Clippers have won 6 in a row. Not bad at all. Next game, Clippers fall flat and lose to the Magic. It's like, I shouldn't have said anything. Oh well. But the Clippers did beat the Bucks on Monday. They beat the 76ers last Saturday, and then they beat the Spurs last Thursday. So, looking at their schedule going forward, after their game against the Nuggets, they play the Lakers on Sunday. Then next Tuesday, now here's where the Clippers' schedule is starting to pick up in their first 4 games of April. They play the Nuggets tonight. They play the Lakers on Sunday. While the Lakers are shorthanded, I can still see the Lakers giving a hard-fought challenge to the Clippers. Like, the Lakers want to prove to the Clippers that they still run LA. And even though people are going to flex their muscles and say, oh, the Clippers are on the come-up. Well, let me tell you this. Until the Clippers get out of the second round, don't come at me with that. I'm not trying to hate on the Clippers, but I'm also just trying to say this. Please stop with this whole bashing of the Lakers. It's like Lakers lose one game without 2 of their superstars, everyone goes bat crazy. The Clippers lose to the Magic, no one cares. No one bats an eye, no one makes a peep, and I'm probably the only one that raises an eyebrow at that. So there's that right there. So back to the Clippers schedule. So after the Clippers play the Lakers, the Clippers play the Trailblazers next Tuesday, and then next Thursday the Clippers play the Suns, which if the Clippers can actually go 4-0, I'll be very impressed. I have them going at the very least 2-2. I'm not going to say which teams they're going to beat and which teams they're going to lose to, but I know that the Clippers are going to be battle-tested. The schedule does start to lighten up a bit for the Clippers, as next Friday they play the Rockets, which have been a complete train wreck. And then next Sunday, or the following Sunday, the Clippers play the Pistons. And then the following Tuesday, the Clippers play the Pacers, and then the Pistons again. And that's where their schedule starts to get a little lighter. And Larry says 17 titles to 0. Facts. Facts right there, Larry B. And people don't want to admit it, but it's the truth. People always lie. Men, women, cats, dogs, goldfish lie. But what doesn't lie is money and numbers. Those are the two things that never lie. So just remember that, people. But as for the Clippers, their schedule does start to pick up. So if the Clippers do go at least at the bare minimum 3-1, that's going to be pretty impressive. If they go 4-0, then I'll be darn right impressed. But anything like in the range of 1-3 and 0-4 kind of makes me wonder if they're actually going to be ready for the postseason. I mean, both LA teams are going to make the playoffs. It's just that for the Lakers, it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy ride until LeBron and or AD gets back, but we'll have to see. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I think both LA teams in the postseason is still a great thing, and I still think the Lakers with LeBron can make a deep playoff run. It just all depends on how LeBron's ankle will be and how AD's knee will be and how Drummond can recover from his toe contusion. I don't think it'll be too bad for him. But those things do hurt. It's just like a bruised toe, and it was just a freak accident. No one could have predicted this would happen. At least it's not a long-term injury. If it was a season-ending injury, then we'd be growing concerns. But for now, I think with no season-ending injuries, the Lakers are totally fine going forward. It's just that they're gonna have to have other players step up, like Markieff Morris, Kyle Kuzma, KCP, Montrezl Harrell, Dennis Schroeder, Marc Gasol. Everyone's going to need to step up. So we'll see how it goes going forward. But I'm not too concerned for the Lakers right now. Until they start slipping a lot, that's when I'll show my concern. But I'm okay with the Lakers and their current state. They'll rise back. Just like the Phoenix, they will rise back from the ashes of the ground and soar. So there's that. But I think on that note, we are going to take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we will have some NHL talk and we'll have some MLB talk as it's opening day. You are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry B, inviting you to join myself, Colin Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it. College football, and do you want to hear a college football show dedicated to all that is college football, including junior college and the CCCAA and the NJCAA, the NAIA, and the NCAA, including Division III, Division II, Division I AA in the FCS, and Division I A in the FBS? Well then, look no further. Join myself, Larry B, and my colleagues, Mr. H-Town Blake Henley, and Mr. Christian Espinoza, each week during the college football season for the latest in college football on 3 and Out College Edition, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right, we are back with segment 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. You can check out all of IE Sports Radio's amazing shows, such as 3 and Out, 3 and Out College Edition, Let's Whine About Sports, Chi-Town Weekly, Bases Loaded, Extra Mile, which is going to be on in less than an hour. Matter of fact, it's going to be on in an hour, so definitely check out the Extra Mile, which is been one of our longer running shows. It has over 5,000 plus downloads on Spreaker, and Daryl Kinsey Jr., Michael Ward, and Christopher Lehman, why did I say Chris Sims, do an excellent job. I'm thinking of Christopher Lehman's Twitter account, Fiji Sims, which he actually discussed why he has that Twitter account, so we'll see. And I actually was like a co-host for Extra Mile, and it's a really fun time. Like, it really is a different pace of show, but it is really fun to be a part of, and it's a great time. So definitely do tune in. But without any further delay, let's get on into segment 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Let's jump on into some hockey action, which I'm not going to go too much into this, but it hasn't been overly great for the Southern California teams. Now, the Kings just recently won 4-2 over the Vegas Golden Knights, but on Monday they lost to the Golden Knights 4-1. They lost to the Sharks twice in the previous weeks, and then they split their series matchup against the Golden Knights the previous week. And then they also lost, and they also beat the St. Louis Blues the week before, So it has been a little bit of a struggle for the LA Kings, but they are in a new month, so hopefully they can improve. Tomorrow they open up a 2-game series against the San Jose Sharks at Staples Center. That's going to be Friday and Saturday, and then on Monday and Wednesday they will stay at Staples Center to face the Arizona Coyotes. And then next Friday and Saturday they will face the San Jose Sharks in San Jose. And I hope the Kings are able to turn it around. It's going to be tough for them, though. But it's not going to be as tough as the Ducks, however. The Ducks have still been on the struggle bus going backward, as they just lost to the Colorado Avalanche 5-2. That is basically more pain right there. They did beat the St. Louis Blues 3-2 in overtime. I think they were down 2-0, and then they managed to come back. So good stuff for the Ducks. And they also beat the Blues the previous night on Friday 4-1. So that was, I guess, cool that they were able to string together 2 straight wins over the Blues. But that's kind of where the buck stops, because they lost to the Avalanche, and it just hasn't really been the greatest month. Like, the Coyotes have still been their daddy, as well as the Minnesota Wild. I mean, I know the Wild have been improved. Like, they're the 3rd best team in the Western Division, but if the Ducks still... So far, the Ducks are at the bottom of the totem pole in the West. They have 28 points. They are 11, 20, and 6. 11 wins, 20 losses, and 6 overtime losses. And this is going to be basically another season in the tank for the Ducks. The Kings at least still have a fighting chance. They are only 4 points out of a playoff position, as they have 34 points behind Arizona's 37 and St. Louis's 38. While Minnesota, Vegas, and Colorado are in the 40s and then the mid 40s to like high 40s to 50 range. So there's that right there, and hopefully the Kings, at least I at least hope the Kings make the playoffs. Like, the Kings have the potential to make the postseason. The Ducks are still fighting, are still like trying to figure out everything, which it's no surprise they're still pretty bad, but it is what it is. So that's going to be that for the hockey portion. I basically wanted to make it as simple can be, as we're going to jump into some MLB action between the Dodgers, Padres, and Angels. So currently at the moment, the Padres are tied with the Arizona Diamondbacks 7-7 at the bottom, in the bottom of the 7th. Hey, that's a good sign if you're a Padres or Diamondbacks fan. 7-7 in the 7th inning. I like those chances. The Dodgers, on the other hand, are not doing so great. They are down 8-4 against the Colorado Rockies. Oh, joy. I mean, I know it's only the first game, and it's not like we don't have a shortened season, but it's like, really? The Rockies? Like, didn't they lose, like, practically their entire roster? Isn't that place basically... like, aren't the Rockies like the biggest joke of the NL West? Just saying. And then the Angels don't play until 7:05 when they take on the Chicago White Sox. Now that matchup is going to be very tough for the Angels. The Angels have probably the most brutal schedule to start off with. Like, they have the White Sox in a 4-game series from now until Sunday. Then they have a 2-game series against the Astros, which the Astros are basically the head honchos of the AL West, and it is going to be at Angel Stadium. And then next week, the Angels travel to Toronto to face the Blue Jays, or wherever the Blue Jays are having their games. I don't know if they're playing at Toronto, but either way, oh no, they're playing at TD Ballpark. I forgot. Yeah, I totally forgot again. The Blue Jays aren't playing their games in Toronto because of COVID and whatnot. So there's that. But that is a brutal 10-game schedule for the Angels. Like, the Blue Jays have drastically improved. I think they could challenge the Yankees in the AL East. The Astros are still the Astros, even though it's just a 2-game series. And then the White Sox appear to be the heavy favorite in the AL Central. Like, it starts, and then after that, after their series against the Blue Jays, they have a 3-game series at Kansas City against the Royals. And then the Angels return home for a 3-game series against the Twins. And then it starts to lighten up a little when they face the Rangers. But then it picks back up with a 4-game series against the Astros. And then it starts to lighten up again with a 3-game series against the Rangers. Then a 3-game series against the Mariners. And then they have to face the Rays. And then they get their little freeway series against the Dodgers. So, looking at the schedule, it starts off to be very brutal for the Angels. Like, I checked out Bases Loaded, which, if you haven't checked out Bases Loaded, definitely do so. Brandon Buckingham, Blake Henley, and Chris Garcia, aka Sports Brain, broke down some of the Angels' schedule to start off. That's a brutal 10-game schedule. But if they they're saying that if they go 5-5, there's still hope for them, but it's still going to be that's still a brutal way to start the season. Tonight for the Angels, Dylan Bundy pitches, which is actually pretty good. He is facing Lucas Giolito. Either way, that's the White Sox's pitcher. Dylan Bundy is probably the Angels' best pitcher, and believe it or not, he was quite the surprise for the Angels last year. He even pitched a complete game, which was absolutely amazing. Which I've never really seen an Angel do that before until now. It's been a while since the Angels have had someone pitch a complete game. So I gotta give kudos to Bundy for accomplishing that feature last year against the Seattle Mariners. So good for him. As for the rest of the Angels pitching staff, it looks solid. It's not glamorous, but they did add a lot of key pieces. They did add some pieces to their roster. I think the Angels. Everyone is saying the Angels will make the postseason this year. It'll have to be through the wild card because I don't see them really making. I don't know if they'll win the AL West. If they do win the AL West, cool. But it's going to be really tough considering they have to face the likes of the Oakland A's. They also have to face the Astros and I don't know about the Rangers, but the Mariners have also improved. So if anything, the Angels will finish probably second at best in the AL West. I have the Angels finishing second in the AL West behind Houston and then making the playoffs as a wild card team. It's not the glamorous thing, but I just want to see the Angels in the postseason to get a possible playoff win to Mike Trout, because Mike Trout could have obviously chosen the path of ring chasing and going to other teams such as the Yankees or the Dodgers or any of those other really talented and deep teams, but he chose loyalty over money, he chose loyalty and money with that monstrous contract, so sorry about that. I just had to take a little sneeze right there, so I'm okay. But back to Mike Trout. I want to see Mike Trout get at least a fighting chance in the postseason. I hate seeing him miss the postseason year in and year out. It really hurts my heart. He deserves some sort of chance to make the postseason. Well, he has made the postseason, but he has not won a playoff game. And he just hasn't had the best chance of winning a World Series. So we'll just have to see and find out. So that's my little spiel on the Angels this go-around. I think the Angels split the series against the White Sox. I have this strange feeling the Angels will take at least 2 off the White Sox. I know it's not the most, but I think it's doable. I think they can do it. So we'll see. Now, as for the Dodgers, which are losing to the Rockies, which, oh goodness. Yeah, I can't believe that the Dodgers are down 8-4 to the Rockies. Kershaw must not have had the best game to start off with. Okay, so looking at the Dodgers schedule at a glance, they open up their season with a 4-game series against Colorado. Unless they somehow come back against the Rockies today, I have them taking probably 3 games. 3 games at bare minimum. And then, this is a weird one. The Dodgers, in their next series, go back to California, but they play the Oakland Athletics on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they play the Nationals, which had their game postponed due to COVID and whatnot. So, yeah. Yeah, so their first 10 games aren't as brutal as the Angels are. The Dodgers' first 10 games is very doable. And then after the Nationals, the Dodgers have a 3-game series against the Rockies. And then their true test begins when they play on April 16th, 17th, and 18th against the Padres. That's going to be a brutal test right there. Like, that could be a possible National League playoff matchup waiting in the wings right there. So there's that whole... Sorry about that. Just my allergies acting up. No big deal. So anyway, I think the Dodgers can at least get 6 wins, if not 7. Like, I don't know how truly good Washington and Oakland is, but I have the Dodgers at least going 7-3, if not 8-2. Well, but it still remains to be seen. I think they have what it takes, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them back in the World Series again. I mean, most Angels fans probably don't want to see them in the postseason and winning another ring, but I, for one, am for seeing the Dodgers win another World Series. I did hear that next year that people, or Fox, predicted the Angels and the Dodgers in the World Series, which, unless the Angels can make a big splash in free agency and get like a blue-collared pitcher, I don't see that happening. Just because, or if they make like a blockbuster trade and they get like someone really noteworthy, like they need pitching. And and the biggest question for the Angels will be, can Shohei Ohtani do good pitching? I think it still remains to be seen, but I will also say this, I am looking forward to that. But back to the Dodgers, I think the Dodgers have their bases loaded, no pun intended, and I honestly think they can get the job done when it comes to this season. Like, it'll probably be tougher than last year, but I think this year the Dodgers have what it takes. And again, most people don't want to see the Dodgers go back-to-back, but I'm all for it. Like, they're doing everything they can. They did lose some key pieces like Kike Hernandez and Jock Peterson, but I think that they made up for it by getting key signings such as Trevor Bauer. So, and then they also signed Justin Turner to an extension, so there's that as well. So, there's your Dodgers news and your Dodgers perspective from me. Now let's go to the Padres, which have now taken the lead. They are up 8-7 at the end of the 7th inning. That is awesome. Good for the Padres. I will try to talk as much Padres as possible. I know the Padres aren't my team, but they are Southern California, and they have a very promising future. Like, they have like promising players as well. Like, they obviously have Fernando Tatis Jr. They also have other players like Yu Darvish, and just to name a few. And then I forget who their pitcher is for tonight. I unfortunately I'm trying to look that up as we speak. I can't find it. But either way, the Padres have a lot of depth on their team. Like, if there's gonna be a year that the Padres win it all this year, it's got to be this year or sometime in the near future. Here's the Padres pitchers. They have Yu Darvish, and then they have who was started today, and then they have other guys like Tim Hill, Keon Kella, Emilio Pagan, and Drew Pomeranz. So, looking at tomorrow's slate for the Padres, they have Blake Snell pitching. That was another key acquisition. I was trying to say accusation. It's acquisition. And then they have 2 undecideds for Saturday and Sunday. But that's okay. So, there's that. Either way, some players that are on the Padres injury report, surprisingly, is Matt Strand, J.V. Guerra, Pierce Johnson, Dinelson Lamet, and Jorge Ona. And most of them are on the 10-day IL, and then Strom is on the day-to-day for an injury, as he is their right-handed pitcher and whatnot. So there's that for the Padres. I really think the Padres and Dodgers have a bright future, and I think that's where the NL West is going to boil down to. Like, if it doesn't boil down to those two, then boy howdy, I'll be disappointed. As we say, good evening to Adam Karnick in the chat room. Thank you for joining me. Hope your day at work went well, and definitely check out Adam Karnick's show, Chi-Town Weekly. He does a great job with it. He talks about White Sox, the Cubs, the Bulls, the Bears, everything that's Chicago sports. As believe it or not, I'm actually talking about the MLB and how the Angels also play the White Sox, and I think that's going to be a fun series. I think that's going to make for some good TV, especially on Sunday, with both teams playing on Sunday Night Football on ESPN. So I really think the Angels can take the first matchup against the White Sox, just because Dylan Bundy has been such a pleasant surprise for them. And then tomorrow the Angels have Andrew Heaney up for pitcher, while Chicago has Dallas Keuchel. I think that's going to be a challenge to face Dallas Keuchel for the Angels. That's tomorrow's matchup. And then Saturday, the Angels have Alex Cobb, while Chicago has Lance Lynn. And Sunday, the Angels have Shohei Ohtani taking the mound for Chicago is Dylan Cease. I really am going to be interested to see how Shohei does on the mound. I really want him to do well as a pitcher. I just want to see him excel as a pitcher. He does such a great job hitting the ball, but I want to see him become what he's supposed to be, as well as a pitcher. And I think he has what it takes to to have a great pitching outing. So it all depends on what the Angels. It all depends on what Shohei brings to the table. As Adam says, Sox versus Angels to start this year should be fun. I agree. I think it's going to be fun, and it's going to be quite the fascinating series. The Angels, a team that's trying to find their way in the AL West, against a talented Chicago White Sox team who looks like the favorite to win in the AL Central. Though nothing is guaranteed. If there's anything that COVID has taught us, it's that nothing is guaranteed. But I think it's going to be a fun series. I think that series is going to be more fun than the other SoCal series between the Rockies and Dodgers and the Padres and the Diamondbacks. I'm not trying to diss the Diamondbacks or Rockies, but I think those two are the bottom two of the NL West, whereas the Dodgers and Padres are the top of the NL West. Even though the Colorado Rockies are beating the Dodgers, but it's only one game. I'm not concerned. So we'll see how it goes for both the Dodgers and the Padres and the Angels after this week. And again, if the Angels do go 5-5 or better in their first 5 games or their first 10 games of the season, I think they'll be fine going forward. But anything less than 5-5, well, it's not detrimental, but it'll put them behind the 8 ball to start the season. And again, that is a brutal start to the season for the Angels, having to face those caliber of teams, the White Sox, the Astros, and the Blue Jays. 2 of those 3 teams being champions of their division. Well, actually, no, the White Sox didn't win the division last year, but they still almost beat the Athletics last year in the playoffs. It's just that the Athletics just had a little bit more punch to them. And then the Astros, they didn't win their division, but they're slated to win their division this year, as well as the White Sox. The Astros had a deep playoff run last year. And then the Blue Jays, I think did they even make the postseason? I want to say they didn't. I'm already drawing a blank on the postseason from last year. either way, it feels like a year ago, even though it hasn't been a year ago. Either way, it is going to be fun, and I'm going to try to get into the baseball season. Like we've got so much sports going on. We have the NBA going on. We have March Madness going on. We have MLB going on. We have NHL going on. We obviously have other college sports going on, which I've kind of cut them out of the picture just because it would make this show a lot longer than expected. So there's that right there, and whatnot. And I'm excited for this time of year, and having baseball in the summer is what's gonna keep this show going. Like obviously, we're still in a pandemic, but everything's starting to get better. Not just in like professional sports, but in youth sports as well, like collegiate sports, and even high school sports in Southern California. And I'm excited for it, and I hope that we can keep doing our part to slowing the spread and eventually getting rid of this virus once and for all, and eventually getting the green light. As I'm all for everyone just doing their part. Like, everyone just needs to follow the guidelines from the CDC. I know everyone doesn't want to, but we have to if we want to get like people or fans back in certain stadiums or certain arenas and whatnot. As we say hello to Pierre Moss in the chat room, thank you for joining. Says what's good. Hey, good for you to be in the chat room, and great job yesterday with the show that never sleeps. Definitely check out Pierre Moss and Harrison Glaser every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern, with their show, The Show That Never Sleeps. They talk about New York and Brooklyn sports, and it's a fun time. So definitely do check them out, because if you don't, you're missing out. And yeah, and Pierre, and also check out Pierre's live calls when it comes to like Wellington Sports Radio. He does an outstanding job with those as well. So big shout out to my boy Pierre Moss and the great job he did with March Madness, along with myself and all the other people that broadcast in games on our sister stations. So there's that right there, and I think that's going to do it for the MLB portion of the show. Just looking back at the scores, the Dodgers did actually score a run, so now they're only down 8-5 against the Colorado Rockies, which is still pretty disappointing, because how are they down? I still don't get how they're down 8-5 in the first game. I know it's just the first game, and I'm not going to downplay it, but that's not really the greatest debut of a season for a World Series champion. Just my take. And then the Padres are still up 8-7. The Diamondbacks do have a man on first base, but there's 2 outs. And the Rockies just ended the threat, and it's still 8-5 in favor of the Rockies going into the bottom of the 8th inning. So the Dodgers have one more chance to avoid their first loss of the season, and avoiding all of the trolls coming out and just dunking on them. So there's that. And I think that's going to do it for today's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. It wasn't as long of a show. Well, obviously it wasn't. It wasn't 2 hours, but I think I've covered pretty much everything when it came to like NCAA basketball, the NHL, the NBA, and the MLB. Once the MLB gets more into its season, I'll start to go more in depth. But once NCAA basketball like ends its season, which it's going to be in the next few days or so, that's when I'll be getting more in depth into like the MLB, and then I'll start to get more depth into the NHL, and then also more in depth. Well, still the same in depth in terms of the NBA. One final thing I do need to note when it comes to the NFL. I didn't really talk too much about this just because it's not overly important, that this actually involves the Chargers, which is surprising. The sister of Chargers controlling owner Dean Spanos has filed a petition in LA court arguing that mounting debt has imperiled the family's finances, and the only solution is to put the team up for sale. filing suggests Jeff Bezos could be interested. So this is not an April Fool's joke. I can't believe it myself. Gosh. I mean, would that imply moving the Chargers back to San Diego or anything? I don't know, but oh boy. I mean, I'm not the biggest Dean Spanos fan. Like, I hate what Dean Spanos did to the city of San Diego, but I hate what's happening right now. It's like, dear God, like what more drama do the Spanos family and the Chargers need? They gotta save the drama for their mama. Just my take. That's something I learned. I just wanted to make a rhyme, so there's that. But I think that's going to do it for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I know this was an awkward day to have the show on this day, being Thursday instead of Friday. But it is what it is. I had to make it work somehow, and I'm glad I was able to do my show today and do it this week, just because there's a lot to get into. And then next week there's going to be a lot to get into as well. I think next week I'm probably going to have the show on Thursday. If Thursday doesn't work, then I'll maybe shoot for like Saturday. But I really want to have the show this next week. I just want it to. I just want to like. I just think there's going to be a lot to go over next week in terms of the NBA, NCAA men's basketball, and then all the other things that I probably didn't touch upon, that I probably could have touched upon. I need to go over as well, but that's going to do it for this show today. Thank you all for tuning in, whether you're tuning in live. Thank you to Ben Suttereth III, Larry B., Adam Karnick, and Pierre Moss for popping in the chat room and saying what's up and listening in. And thank you to everyone that's listening on the playback. And without any further delay, it's time to get on out of here, because in about 30 minutes, we have another show going on. So once again, thank you all for tuning in, whether you're tuning live or whether you're tuning in on the replay. I definitely appreciate you tuning in, taking time out of your day, and listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Definitely check out IE Sports Radio all on Twitter and on Instagram at IE Sports Radio. Check them out on Facebook. Check them out on other numerous platforms. And check out their website, www.iesportsradio.com. Definitely give a big shout out to Legacy Financial, the IE Sports Radio sponsor. I definitely appreciate the advice I most recently got from them today, and I definitely recommend checking out Legacy Financial. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourselves a great rest of the week. Have yourselves a great weekend. Enjoy some baseball. Enjoy the rest of March Madness. And I will be passing over the mic to Daryl Kinsey Jr., Michael Ward, and Christopher Lehman, and the Extra Mile crew, as they'll be talking about a lot about motorsports. Once again, have yourselves a great rest of the night, and just remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace!